So, whistleblowers and whistleblowing organizations like WikiLeaks do precisely that, provide us citizens with inside information of our governments. Isn't the anti-whistleblowing sentiment also anti-democratic then?
Yeah, I believe so, but there's a fine line between whistleblowing and keeping people informed and endangering forces that are endangering our citizens abroad. The only problem I had with WikiLeaks is that they were releasing classified military documents that were putting our foreign operatives in danger. So there really is a fine line between the government telling you everything and the government keeping things for the good of our boys and girls across the...
What about the reports that came out of WikiLeaks that showed the crimes that were committed by our military abroad? Do you think those informed us about what was going on in our name?
I think that, yeah, I believe that was something that needed to happen. I believe we talked about this the other day in our class. We talked about Abu Ghraib and how that was a terrible thing, but the American people needed to know about that. We need to know what's going on, but at the same time, we need to make sure that the people that are over there protecting our freedoms stay safe.
And just add, I mean, we are a representative government. We pride ourselves that we elect these officials to represent us in the House and Senate. These senators, and especially that of the president, are offered different intelligence that the American people aren't at liberty to get. I mean, obviously, I don't want to get a phone call from the United States government saying, by the way, 9 o'clock tonight, we're bombing Libya. I don't need to know that. They need to be able to make those decisions on their own. However, going back to what you're saying about hearing different crimes and stuff that per se would be a cover-up, that our government maybe tries to cover up and we don't get to see, example Fast and Furious or anything like that. We definitely need to know that. But we don't need to know everything. But we definitely need to know what our government is doing.
We need to know everything. We need to know everything eventually.
Yeah,
things are there are time-sensitive matters that should come out after the job is complete. But if it's going to endanger the lives of people that put their lives on the line for us to protect our freedom, then that needs to be released at a time-sensitive time.
Well, on the subject of things kept a secret that maybe or maybe not, they should be. In the context of the upcoming election, what are your thoughts on President Obama's policies in regards to more of our covert operations, our intelligence services? For one, ending a number of practices related to what was called quote-unquote harsh interrogation. In other words, what many would say, ending our torture policy as a nation. What are your thoughts on
I guess you're referring to Gitmo and the waterboarding instance and stuff of that nature. Is that correct? And I mean, this is a very touchy subject because you are torturing these human beings, but at the same time, these are terrorist criminals who killed millions of Americans, and if these techniques work, and I don't know the detail, I don't get the scripts of what goes on in Gitmo, and I don't know exactly how good these interrogation techniques work, but from what I've heard from different sources, they were humane in the sense that no one was permanently hurt or damaged. The body wasn't damaged, but they were effective and they were given valuable information that in turn saved a lot of American lives. So I couldn't say personally that I could make the call on that. That's a very touchy issue. That's war is a very touchy issue. So in one sense, you say we are the leaders in human rights. We stand up, but we're not going to participate in activities in that in that manner. But in the same sense, we do want to protect our American citizens.
to bounce off that. That goes to the heart of one of my biggest beliefs is that you have to have faith in the people that we put in office. If you don't have faith in them, then how are you going to trust them?
Now, speaking of faith in the people in office, it has come to light that a top U.S. general in Afghanistan, namely Lieutenant General William Caldwell, sought to stall an investigation into abuse at a U.S.-funded hospital in Kabul that kept patients in what has been now termed Auschwitz-like conditions. Army whistleblowers revealed photographs that show neglected and emaciated patients with maggot-infested wounds. Now, don't you think that kind of behavior coming from high-level officials that we are supposed to have faith on, and if we don't know about it, that threatens our image and what we are supposed to represent? Absolutely.
I think that, and that's what I'm saying about having faith in our officials, is that they found out that this is happening. Unfortunately, whistleblowers had to get the call, but they were coming to do an investigation on this. The whistleblowers just advanced that investigation to come. So they found out about it. They're coming to investigate. The general blocked it because he was allegedly found guilty by these whistleblowers. So that's a perfect example of the people we put in power and the people working together to make sure that we have a transparent government.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect example of whistleblowing, like you guys mentioned earlier, of working. But we need to make sure that these whistleblowers aren't, in return, losing their rank or treated differently because they are whistleblowing. Because obviously, in this situation, they're looking out for these human beings, and we need to know about this, and that's why we should definitely, from the military to bureaucracies, wherever it is, we definitely need to protect whistleblowers and stuff in that nature.
On the subject of human rights, and especially in light of the upcoming election, what are your comments on the Obama administration's expansion of the drone strike program?
I like drones because that's somebody sitting back and an unmanned aircraft is taking care of business and saving military, our men and women's lives. If there's any technology that we can use that in the battlefield of that, by all means, we should use more of it, because anytime that we can, reduce the number of casualties and still be an effective military, or in that sense, by all means, we should use them. However, I'm not too sure about how the drones have been used. I know that they've been popping up everywhere in the United States. I don't understand why President Obama believes that he needs to put drones in flying over a cattle field in Iowa. He doesn't need to be looking at his citizens. We need to be using these drones in warfare situations. I definitely believe that we should have the drones hovering the border. That would be a great place to have them. I mean, that could cut down on manpower and that we would need on the border and border patrol, and we could cut that down with a few drones flying over areas.
This is also a perfect example of how we need to make sure that we keep an eye on presidential power, because at the same time that, yes, he needs to make snap decisions on foreign affairs and whether or not we need to use drones, and if we have a target that we need to take out and it's a time-sensitive issue, he needs to have the power to take them out. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we can rein in on that to make sure that he's not abusing that power. There's a big difference between using that as a way to get what we need to get done and as a fear tactic to get people to stay in line.
So in Pakistan, where drone attacks are being used, thousands of civilians have died. In fact, the Obama administration does not even differentiate between the civilian population and the targets. Any military-aged male, it's considered a target, whether you are with the Al-Qaeda or not. So do you think that kind of drone attacks, this way of killing civilians and which is causing widespread anti-American sentiments across Pakistan. Right now there are protests going on. Do you think this is justified? Also, I want to add that in Yemen, Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a US citizen, was killed with a drone strike. A US citizen killed with a drone strike without any due process of law. Do you think this is justified?
To give a bit more context to that, overall, the drone strike program has had an approximate 16% civilian casualty. That means that 16% of all those injured or killed, or more specifically killed, in drone attacks have been civilian.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest decision the President of the United States would ever have to make, would be to call special strikes of any sort or even declaring war, because when you make that decision that not only are you putting your men and women in harm's way, but also in your decision that you may or more than likely will kill innocent civilians. And thankfully that we don't have to go through this in America, that our wars are taken overseas and we don't have to experience these horrors in the night. But you also have to put your, in these people's shoes. These innocent civilians are being killed. But it's just a really touchy subject, because I'm not in the Situation Room making the call with the president. And hopefully, the people that we have trusted to be in that room with him will give him the guideline, that he needs to make the right decision. Unfortunately, war is a bad thing and innocent civilians are going to die. However, with our efforts in the Middle East, our plan, from sacrificing a few of these attacks maybe lead to more human rights in the future, because every day over there women's rights is women are tortured for small thing as letting their face show, and then they're stoned to death. So I would hope that any decision like that was made with very the most consideration and the hardest thinking you could do as a president and the people in that Situation Room.
I agree that we need that. It is the hardest decision that they can make. At the same time, we can always do better on strengthening our intelligence and making sure that we increase the technology that we have with these drones to where we can more closely pinpoint the targets we're trying to get without collateral damage. We can always do better, and that's the thing that we need to keep in mind, is that whenever we do this, we can always get better. We can always diminish casualties. We can always get the target